audio. We're good. All right, cool. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Ready?
Hang on, I had to breathe.
But how are you doing physically? Any better?
Comes and goes.
Is that better though?
Some days are better than others. I literally threw up a couple days ago. That was weird.
That's strange, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. So part of it is stomach issues. It's like stomach and chest.
Yeah.
And so my stomach is like weird every day. And the other day I just like started feeling nauseous all of a sudden. And I was just like, am I about to throw up? And then I just like did. And then
I hate throwing up.
I never do it. That's why it was so weird for me. So the last time I threw up before recently was in 2nd grade. And then,
what?
And then I never threw up, not from drinking, not from anything, until earlier this year when I was having a panic attack, and I threw up. Not fun. And I was like, whoa, that sucks. I haven't done that in a while. And then I didn't throw up after that until a couple days ago. So that was weird. Anyway, I was just recording that, so for some reason we have that.
I was about to say you should just put us talking in the beginning and then we'll get to the issue.
We have that for the behind the scenes.
I literally just keep it in the beginning and then we'll go to the issue. That's what like most podcast people do. I watched this one podcast, man. Forget about it.
What was the podcast?
It's called Taste Buds, and they argue food. And before they argue their food, they talk like 15, 20 minutes just.
Well, I was thinking for this episode, since it's been so long, we'll do that.
I get you.
We'll have a little bit of convo to fill the time a little bit, but we never did the intro, so I'm going to kick that off. So, hello and welcome back to Webheads Comic Club, our podcast where we are reading through every single issue of The Amazing Spider-Man, all the way from 1 back in 1962 to past, I think we're at 901 right now, currently. I am DA Comics, joined by
JP.
And we are back. It's been a little while. Whose fault is that?
I mean, so 2 weeks of the time were my fault. Every other time was both of us because we just didn't talk about it. Actually, I think I came and was like, when we're doing the podcast, you're like, I don't know.
We had a little, we don't need to talk. It's not a big deal. I feel like I feel like the last time I talked to you was the last time we did a Webheads episode, though. So,
it could have been. I started a new job about a month ago, and that's just about.
Yeah, I mean, you've been busy with the social life and job and all this stuff.
And job and all this stuff, and like I guess having a girlfriend takes up a lot of your time too. I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but I was like, I'm not trying to like out this guy if he's not trying to like bring that up. But
no, but that and just the job has been
life.
Yeah, I haven't been playing a lot of video games, and that's usually when we talk. So I mean.
Yeah, and the podcast was on hold. The reason we originally took a while to get this episode out was because we were trying to have a guest on, but that didn't pan out.
You know what? Fine. You know who the guest is this episode? It's the Green Goblin. He's the star. He's the shining beauty in this episode, and in my daily life mostly as well. I did want to finish my thought from before. I hate puking. You ever like there's some things you just don't like?
Yeah.
Puking is one of them. I hate it. I get anxious.
Does anyone like it though?
No, but like I get like nauseous and I get anxious, which makes me more nauseous because I hate when you puke and then you can't breathe and you're like, oh my god, I might never breathe again. And like
imagine how I feel. I'm already having a breathing problem and I'm out here throwing up.
Fair enough for that.
My anxiety was through the roof and I'm medicated for that. No, I didn't, like I mentioned, I didn't throw up for many years, and it became a thing where like I would say like I just don't throw up. Like when my friends would get drunk and throw up or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, I never throw up. And then this was right at like the height, right before I started being medicated for anxiety. My anxiety was at like an all-time high. Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't leave my room. I was like flipping out because I was having that breathing problem and I was getting anxious about it. And there was one night where I was just getting like really panicky about it because I particularly wasn't feeling well, and then I just like happened and I was like, that I forgot what it felt like because I hadn't done it in so long.
That's insane.
Yeah, it felt
puking
familiar.
Is like it's just one of those things you gotta do sometimes. It's just you gotta yak and then you get it over with.
That's the sad part about it, because like, not to like put her business out there, but Reagan, when she feels like she's gonna throw up, she'll induce it. Not in like an unhealthy way.
That makes sense.
But like to get it over with.
Fight it. Yeah, fight it.
Yeah. Like not like in an unhealthy,
Right now,
like
I get what you're saying. Just like let it happen, because as soon as the sooner it happens, the sooner you'll probably feel
Exactly, because that was the other night when I started to feel nauseous. I was like, I don't want to throw up, but then as soon as I did, it was like 40 seconds of misery, and then I felt so much better.
I have a friend who's almost like religiously. I think he's doesn't do this as much often anymore, but he would like have an upset stomach, and not purposely, but he'll do like, all right, I'm gonna go throw up, and that'll be fine. And so he would throw up and be fine, like in restaurants, like parties, like that's what he would do. He'd just go throw up, and that'd be it.
Yeah, no,
Feel better.
And I generally like, because I just never really got sick enough to throw up, and also like from drinking and stuff, like I never, like I know my limits. Like if I started to feel like I was drinking too much, I'd stop, and then I'd be fine. So it was just never a thing with me. But yeah, that's my health update.
Sounds like you didn't have a real 21st like me, brother.
No, I know my limits. I can push them, but I know, like, there are people who don't know their limits. They just drink and drink and drink, and then they get blackout and sick. Yeah. I actively didn't want to throw up, so I was like, when I'm drinking, I'll drink. I'll even go overboard, but, like, I actively avoided getting sick all the time. I think the drunkest I've been was my 21st or New Year's last year, which was where, like, I felt sick, but I didn't throw up. Like, I stopped right at the perfect time where, like, an hour after I stopped drinking, I started to feel sick, and I was like, nailed it.
That was me this weekend. I know my limits, but my 21st, I mixed a bunch of different liquors, and I didn't drink that much, but it just made me puke.
Can't mix liquors, man.
I mean, yeah, I was, like, taste testing every type of liqueur I could get my hands on, and it didn't go well. But other than that, I've been fine.
I mean, had you not drank before your 21st?
No, I definitely have. I didn't even drink that much on my 21st, but I blacked out and threw up a couple times. So
I was gonna say, obviously, you know, just to put it out there, you know, drink responsibly, all of that. But like, I didn't drink until I was 20, and at that point, by the time I was 21, I already kind of knew what I liked, and I kind of knew what I was doing. So like, we were just having fun, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so big episode. This
huge.
I almost said this week, but as if we had one last week. Huge episode this time around. What episode are we on now? 9, I think.
Could be.
This is our Green Goblin special. We are only talking about issue 39 and 40, which are obviously some of the most impactful issues of the entire series. Yeah, he's got both of them. I've just got my beaten up 40 over here. This 40 displays really well. If you look at it closely, the spine is like completely destroyed, but it looks good. The colors are great.
I will say my 40 is like really nice. My 39 is all jacked up on the cover.
I really want a nice 40. I want a 40 signed by John Romita.
But you can see like it's kind of like it got like wrinkled or something. I don't know. It looks like someone kind of squished it, but I mean,
we got that dog cameo.
She hasn't barked like that at this late. That's not true at all. She does it every night.
Yeah,
I just don't notice it as much when.
I was gonna say, anytime I talk to you, I hear that dog bark.
Yeah, she goes at it.
But
she don't stop.
But yeah, that's our life update from the hiatus. Just working, in your case, working and dating, and in my case, just recovering health wise. And I'm growing my hair out. For anyone who hasn't watched this last episode, that's why I'm in like this awkward in between phase where it's like not quite long but not short. I'm trying something, you know.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. I've been growing my hair out too, but I keep cutting it and then growing it a little bit, cutting it, growing it, because I don't want to go through that awkward phase.
Yeah, you just kind of got to bite the bullet, you know. Because I hit a while ago where I was talking to Reagan, and I was like, I kind of just want to like grow it out, like go for the Nordic like long hair, and she was like, do it, because I have pretty good hair, so I was like, I think I could grow it out and it would look pretty good. So I just stopped getting haircuts. I don't think I've gotten a haircut this year.
Right. Wow.
And it's not quite there. I'm a little worried because I obviously have the wedding in a couple months, so I'm like, if it doesn't look good then I might have to cut it. But
well, then yeah, you gotta have to do what you gotta do at that point. But
we'll see how it goes.
Who knows?
But yeah,
I mentioned that to you because I haven't seen you since like I guess a lot of podcasts, and you could see how much it's grown since then.
Yeah, well, I've started having to part it because if I leave it here, it's gonna be like in my face, and it's just like doing the whole thing. But
you can just do the beaver do like you used to, where it's just like.
Yeah, thanks for that. Now, even if I do that, it's too long though, because the sides it's just the whole thing. I'm just I gave up. I started parting it.
No, there you go.
We ain't there yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, that's trying to think of any other like housekeeping stuff to take care of. I got a new setup. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, got comics in the background and stuff. Got this case with like Marvel Zombies stuff on it, the Infinity Gauntlet. You know, we're chilling out here.
You don't have your Hot Toys back there though.
Hot Toys over there.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
It's between the posters. You can check out Around the Boxes episode 25 if you want to see what we're talking about.
I've been so busy that I haven't rearranged my room again, so we're in the same spot we were last time like the first episode.
I'm still waiting for the green screen with that image behind you. Like,
what if it just like it fell and broke and it was like I'm in like
that would be
jail.
such a good bit. And I know we've joked about stuff like that before. I don't want to say the other thing we joked about because I actually want to do it and I don't want to tip people off, but that would be hilarious. Like it just falls mid podcast and it's a green screen and you're just like in some like studio with like lights and like this nice setting.
Right. That'd be funny if I was just like in a jail cell.
Yeah. Just like the podcast never stops, man.
I snuck the spear in, dude.
The only thing that stops the podcast is our horrible ability to schedule things.
Yeah, my rec time was crazy this week. So Spider-Man.
I think we can dive into the books. We've caught up adequately. We can dive into the comic books for this episode. The beginning of the John Romita era. You probably see if you're watching this on YouTube, I got a new overlay with John Romita art because we are in a new era of the podcast. Season 1.5, if you will. We had the Steve Ditko era. We gave our final thoughts on that in the last episode. And now we're here with John Romita, who is, in my opinion, one of the greatest to ever do it.
He is my favorite.
I don't know if I'm gonna say favorite. My favorite might be my boy right back here, but
I mean, of course, he's one of the best in my opinion.
One of the easy top 3 easy.
I think Romita is the best.
That's a valid.
And even though I've seen a lot of interviews with Romita where he said for the first couple of years he really tried to mimic Ditko so that there wasn't such a stark difference between issue or artist from artist for the readers.
Yeah.
But I can immediately tell a difference, and I immediately like Romita a lot more.
It's cleaner. I feel like
Exactly.
Romita is a better technical artist than Steve Ditko.
Yeah.
Like Steve Ditko's art, we even like joked about it sometimes. Like it's kind of bad sometimes. Like there are some panels where you're like, what is wrong with his leg there? John Romita's is a lot more clean. It's a lot more consistent. Like it looks crisper. And I like the way he draws Peter. Peter just looks a little bit less like a jerk, I guess. I don't know. I got the dog chiming in on that.
Hold on. Things are going awry here. Okay, there we go. My Spotify started playing.
Oh. Yeah, good thing is not playing on the podcast because we will get copyright strike. But yeah, John Romita is obviously like one of the greatest. I got him up here. My legends are over here. I got the Mark Bagley signed book and I got the John Romita signed book. So like,
yep, perfect.
He's up there, top two. But yeah, this is the big event. Pretty much everything in the series so far has been leading up to this story. Right? Like,
Yeah,
is that fair to say? I mean, I think that's pretty...
I think it's definitely fair to say. I mean, this is a turning point. I feel like I said this before, but a turning point in Spider-Man as a character and as a universe.
This is the story that broke up Stan Lee and Steve Ditko.
That as well.
We alluded to that last episode, but like... This story is the straw that broke the camel's back with their relationship. Like, they already had a tense relationship, but Stan Lee, with the decisions he wanted to make with this story, Steve Ditko didn't like it, and that's why he was out of there. And that's why, as soon as he left, they did this story, because this was what they broke up over, basically.
Which is so crazy, because it's such a good story and such an iconic story. And, like, could you imagine if Ditko won the argument?
So, remind me what Ditko's argument was. He wanted it to just be someone we didn't know?
A random person.
To be fair, we didn't know Norman Osborn until like 2 issues ago.
True, but he wanted to, I guess, from what I've watched and read and whatever, he just wanted to be someone random, completely random.
The thing that I've thought about is, like, what if they never revealed his secret identity? Like, I think the biggest character that comes to mind for that is the Joker in Batman, right? Like, for a long time, it was kind of like, who is the Joker? No one knows. He doesn't have an origin story. He doesn't have any of that. That's not quite the case anymore, but imagine how different things would be, and I almost wonder, like, would it have been, like, really cool if Green Goblin just never had his identity revealed and was just that, like, nemesis that, I don't know, he just never knew who it was? I feel like that would have been an interesting...
It would have been interesting, but I think the fact that, like, Harry becomes his best friend, and Norman Osborn's so close to Peter Parker, and they both know the secret, is just so good. And
Yeah.
obviously lends to a lot of good storylines and a lot of bad things to happen.
That is the thing I was thinking about as I was reading this, is obviously this is a great story.
Right.
But, and don't come at me for this,
I understand.
it's probably one of the worst of the Spider-Man and Green Goblin epics.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the first epic, so...
Exactly. Like, it's only the beginning. That's the part
not-
that got me so excited, was reading this and knowing that we're going to keep reading the series. I was like, I can't wait to get to the later ones, because this is awesome, but it's nothing compared... Like, think about... I mean, there's so many. I can't think. I mean, obviously, the Gwen Stacy arc and the death of him, and I really like, in more recent history, like the end of Superior Spider-Man when Green Goblin showed up, Goblin Nation, and Red Goblin at 800. Like, so many cool...
When he came back after 122.
Yeah, when did he come back?
And the 400s, 500s, something like that.
It was pretty late, yeah.
Was he drawn by Rita Jr. then?
No.
He had a goof. No. It was some artist, but I never really liked the way he was drawn then.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, the summary of these issues. I mean, we'll dive in as we give our thoughts to the more details, but the basic summary is: Green Goblin figures out Spider-Man's identity. He's the first villain to do so.
Yep.
Even beating out Doc Ock to that. And then he basically kidnaps Peter, and that's part 1 of the story. And then part 2 is him telling his origin story. Issue 40 is his origin story. And then ultimately them fighting and resolving the conflict, which we'll talk about when we get to that. But the one thing that stood out to me immediately in these stories that I want to talk about, they made a big deal about Peter having a cold at the beginning of 39, and it never mattered again after that.
Yeah, that was... I think they were just really, really trying to stack the bad luck and the what's the word I'm looking for here? The stakes.
Yeah.
Because you got... Okay. And then they revealed he's got a cold. His Aunt May all of a sudden is sick.
Will die if she hears bad news.
If she hears bad news, she will drop dead. So you got 3 stacking things on top of each other. They were just trying to stack.
Yeah, but
really
it was just
and
so...
they forgot about it. You know?
They made such a big deal out of it, like even changing the way they wrote his dialogue to have like the cold...
Which was so funny for me because, again, I read these last night. I'm tired now, I was tired then. When I first read the first panel and he was like, Hab, whatever, I was like, oh, it's a misprint. That's so stupid. Like, they misprinted it. And I have it, Hab, and then I kept reading, I was like, oh. And then I typed, okay, I see.
Yeah, I don't have an appointment, but I have this bad code in my node.
Yeah.
They went out of their way to point out that he went to the doctor, they wrote his dialogue differently, and then all of a sudden Green Goblin shows up and he's just like, fine. I thought
honestly,
it'd be more of a like, I
was
can't fight back because I'm weak, because I have a cold. Like, he didn't say that
when
once.
he was fighting Green Goblin, he still had the Hab, code,
Yeah,
dialogue.
I figured they were gonna do the classic Stan Lee, like where it's a thought bubble, and he's like, "I'm weak because of my cold. I can't fight back. What am I gonna do?" And they just never really did that. But that was kind of the first like big part of the story, was him having the cold and touching.
And we
on
did
that.
have, like we just mentioned, some more corny stuff where it's like all of a sudden, Aunt May was sick before, and now she hears bad news. She's gonna drop dead. And now, well, if she hears that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, that'll be it. She'll drop dead.
The first point that I really noticed John Romita's art, aside from seeing Green Goblin in the beginning, because John Romita has an iconic Green Goblin, I've heard it said before, I don't remember who said it, but someone said that John Romita's art is very, like, soap opera-esque. Like, it's very dramatic.
Yeah.
And the scene where he's in the hospital talking to the doctor, and the doctor's like, any excitement will kill her, and it's a panel of Peter's face, like, like, shocked. And you really, I thought of it in that moment. I was like, this is very soap opera-esque. Like, she'll die. Bum, bum, bum. Zooming in on his face, being all dramatic. Like, it's great. But that definitely stood out to me. I was like, oh, there's that soap opera art.
I love when the doctor says you have your blood pressure is fine, Pete, but you have the pulse of a superhero.
Yeah. If he only
There you go.
knew.
Yeah.
We get to see John Romita, Gwen Stacy. which is
Yes,
she still looks different than I envisioned. I guess she hasn't got to her like iconic look yet.
Again, like I said, Romita said he was really just trying to copy Ditko at this point.
That's true. She's still got she looks. It is very.
She's got those like weird points to her. That
she has like the curls here.
Yeah.
I don't know how one does that, but I love the scene at the college. Peter's lost in thought about Aunt May, and everyone's like, "Hey guys, we're gonna be nice to Peter, right? Remember, hey Peter!" And he's, Stanley loves the idea that when people are deep in thought, they just don't hear anything.
Yeah.
So then they're like, "Oh, he's putting us off again." But the part that really made me laugh is then Harry shows up, and they show us a bit of Norman and Harry's relationship, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. But Harry's lost in thought, and he doesn't hear them either. And rather than being like, "Oh, that's two people, maybe they're deep in thought," they just go, "Oh, now Harry's doing it." Like, they immediately jump on Harry. I'm like, let's reflect for a second about the fact that maybe you got to recognize that people just don't hear you.
Right.
But that's,
they're too big for the britches. There's no way they couldn't hear them.
Yeah, like, I forget what they said. Oh, he goes, "I don't know what Parker's got, but we better put him in quarantine. It's turning into an epidemic."
Yeah.
Which, that hit a little close to home recently, but,
But a couple decades, sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, it's funny because then that crew is, like, mad at Peter and mad at Harry, and they end up coming, like, Peter goes up to Harry in class and is like, "Hey, man, you feeling well?" And they have, like, a nice little heart-to-heart. We're starting to see the foundations of a friendship.
That was it was nice to see Pete not do what I feel like he would have done in a couple issues before, like maybe like 10 or so issues before, and probably just be a dick to him.
Yeah.
Just shrug him off. Yeah, he's being the bigger man and still trying to help him and give him advice, even though Harry's been pretty much, I wouldn't say, yeah, I guess a bully to him.
100%. And that's where you start to kind of see, he has the, like, Harry starts talking about his situation, and Peter's like, "Wow, poor guy. Like, no wonder he's been so bitter." Like,
yeah.
You start to see that empathy where it's like, oh, like, Harry's being a jerk because his dad is a jerk to him. Flash is a jerk because of his, like, all of these dynamics you start to dive into a little bit more. And also, Gwen is still crushing on him hard, despite the fact that she's been over him many times.
Of course.
But, gotta set that up. When do they actually start dating? I don't remember.
I have no clue.
I guess we'll find out.
But, like you said, we've seen a little bit of the Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn relationship, and we find out that it supposedly used to be a good relationship. We find out it really wasn't in the next issue, even though Harry said, like, we had a good relationship until about 2 years ago, which would be around the first appearance of the Green Goblin in their time frame.
Starting to connect
So that's
the pieces.
interesting.
I really wonder how many readers back in the 60s were reading this book and at this point in the story guessed.
I mean, you gotta say most of them, right?
I don't know, because, like, obviously they were trying to, like, leave it as, like, a big reveal at the end. So I wonder if people caught on to it or not. Like, they were leaving breadcrumbs, but...
I feel like if you're at a certain age, if you're not like a child, even if you are a child, and you read the thing says, Spidey and the Green Goblin both unmasked, and then you get this scene, you're probably like, well...
Yeah, I guess.
There's a chance.
Yeah. I mean, I can't put myself in those shoes, because even when I've tried to read these as if I was back in the 60s, reading this issue, it's like, I know, like, you can't not know that Green Goblin is Norman Osborn. So reading it, like, I couldn't look at it from any other lens.
No. But then we shoot to Spidey shaking off the cobwebs and doing a little swing to see if he can feel better.
Yeah.
He swings right into what seems to be a bunch of gangsters holding a place up.
Burglars or something.
Yeah, burglars, whatever you want to call them. But first off, I love the way they talk. I've always loved the way that stands as the dialogue for,
good
robbers
woik
or gangsters.
He says, good woik, W-O-I-K, good woik. And Bernard is B-O-I-N, so it's good woik, Bernard. I can't do the accent, but that's the way it's written.
That's what we were waiting for, wasn't it?
Yeah, we won't have to listen to any more of his blasted yapping. It's the perfect Italian gangster, maybe a stereotype. I'll let you decide. But yeah, no, the scene. I don't think I've ever read these comics, so I honestly didn't know how this whole story went down. I knew that the identities were revealed, and I knew the amnesia at the end. But when he started fighting all these gangsters, I was like, am I reading one of the like early issues? Like, what is going on here? Like, we're just fighting some random gangsters. Like, come on.
It went on for way too long. I will say that.
Yeah,
this could have been about a page, 2 at max.
It's part of his plan, though.
But it went for like 5 pages.
It did, yeah, it did. It was long. It was long. And then they hit him with the gas, and I do think it's funny. They hit him with the gas, and Green Goblin is like flying up above them, watching, and I'm like, it's broad daylight. Like, you're telling me Spider-Man doesn't look up and just see the Green Goblin floating above him?
And he's got that spider sense at this point before the gas happens, so
yeah,
you'd think you would.
I don't know.
See him or get a sense of him, but
a little sus.
Did not.
But
I also love Green Goblin with binoculars.
Yeah, that is great. But I think the big thing that I took away from that moment so Green Goblin hired those gangsters basically to hit him with the gas, right? He told the gangsters it would beat Spider-Man. That was a lie. They were only there to gas him so that he would lose his spider sense, so that Green Goblin could trail him. And I'm noticing that like a lot of, as we go through the Spider-Man comics, we'll see that throughout Spider-Man's history, a lot of his best villains, the secret to them beating him was negating his spider sense.
Right.
Because you see it with Green Goblin, you see it with Venom. You know, Venom doesn't trigger his spider sense, so he ends up being a big problem for him. Carnage, too. So that's an interesting dynamic that, like, Spider-Man relies on his spider sense so much that becomes a problem. And later on, he'll end up losing his spider sense, and that's a whole other thing. But
I mean, especially at this point, the spider sense is like a superpower where it like can literally do anything the writer decides. Like,
where is Dr. Doom? He's over there.
He's over there. The Green Goblin looking at me through binoculars about 100 feet away. I can't see him.
Yeah, like I remember a little anecdote here when we played the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. JP, you were playing Spider-Man. I tried to record this to have it on YouTube, but it never worked out. And I remember you were like, "Can I have like the Ditko spider sense where I just know where to go,
know everything?"
And I'm like, "No, you cannot."
That would have been so easy. I'd be like, "What door are the captors in?"
It's like right there. Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a little OP, but they nerf him later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So the classic scene of Parker going and changing back, or Spider-Man going back and changing into Peter Parker, and Green Goblin just kind of hovering behind him and finding out that it's just a kid.
Yeah, and the narration, I mean, it's thought bubbles for Green Goblin. He's like, aha, he's just a kid. He can't be 19 or 20. He's, whatever. And then he ends up overhearing him at the Daily Bugle, so he finds out his name is Peter Parker. He follows him to find his house. He really just gets one up on him.
Also love Jameson in this issue. He was just absolutely vintage Jameson.
Off the rails.
Just going at it.
I
love reading whenever Jameson is on the page.
Yeah,
it's just so good, it's only been getting better. And
this book is good, but I especially love, and I think it's the next issue when they're looking for Peter Parker, and they're like, they call Jameson. They're like, "Where is he?" And he's like, "I don't know, probably stealing a hubcap somewhere." So like, that is really funny, but I can see what it is when we get there. But yeah, my favorite panel from probably both these issues is the panel when Green Goblin swoops down in front of Peter outside of his house in Queens, and he goes, "Correct, Parker, your web-slinging masquerade is finally finished, and so are you, Spider-Man." And just the way John Romita draws him, he has this like menacing smile on his face, like he won, That's a great panel.
It's pretty amazing. Also, Green Goblin microphone.
Yeah. He has all sorts of wacky gadgets, and he has a Goblin cannon later, so...
Yeah, it's actually insane. But the fight that takes place in his backyard, or his front yard, at his house, I mean, that's like, talk about close to home.
Yeah. And you feel the stakes of it, because like, if Aunt May looks out the window, she's going to see them, she's going to have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
Any neighbor could see them and be like,
yep.
"Yo, that Peter Parker kid is doing a lot of acrobatic stuff fighting the Green Goblin."
He's doing a lot of Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah. Green Goblin actually ends up doing Peter a favor by using the smoke attack, because that blocks out, so when Aunt May looks out the window, all she sees is smog. Now,
it's like, I hear a lot of funny noises outside.
I want to mention one inconsistency with this fight scene, though. I don't know if you noticed this. Earlier, when he's at the doctor, and he's checking his arm, he goes, "Man, I'm glad I took my costume off." Beginning of this fight, he goes to shoot a web, and he goes, "Oh, no, I forgot. I'm not wearing my costume." Next page, his clothes start to get ripped, and he has his costume on under the clothes.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, well, does he just... I don't know.
I think they just kind of forgot about that detail.
They just wanted the suit under.
They wanted him to be able to put the suit on.
How do you forget about that? But it's the next page.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe he just had his web shooters off, but he had the costume on.
That's what they're trying to get at, is that he didn't have the web shooters, like the gloves on, but he had the suit on.
It felt like a huge plot hole. I mean, I was thrown off, but it makes sense because they want him to have the costume in the next issue. Because this issue, the fight scene is Peter Parker versus Green Goblin. The next issue is Spider-Man versus Green Goblin. Like, there's kind of a difference there. But it's just like all of a sudden he had his costume on, and I was like, wait, we've talked about him having it off like multiple times, just like we talked about him having a cold, and then that never came up. So that's interesting. But the issue kind of abruptly, I mean, he kidnaps him, flies him over to his headquarters, and this is where I feel like we could have taken less pages fighting the gangsters and added a bit more pages here, because it's like over the course of 2 pages we go from fighting in the backyard to Green Goblin unmasking in his lair.
I think it would have been pretty cool before the unmasking if there was dialogue, a lot more dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah.
To kind of like, ramp up the reveal.
I think they just wanted to end the issue with a cliffhanger, whereas I do agree if we had gotten into issue 40 and there was more of that back and forth where Peter's trying to stall him, trying to get him talking, and then like by riling up he goes, you know what? And like... Because this is just a little cheesy. It's like, I've got you captured. Here's my face. Like, whereas if it was a more emotional thing.
They cut down a couple pages on the him fighting the robbers or whatever. And just added some of that.
Yeah.
Back and forth into this issue. And it still ended on a cliffhanger.
Well, I mean, even if you save the unmasking for next issue, right? Yeah. You still have, like, he's captured by the Green Goblin. How is he gonna escape? Like, that's a cliffhanger. And then you could get to the next issue, go through that dialogue of him explaining why he's doing it, and kind of, you're seeing that he's, like, crazy. I mean, we kind of knew the Green Goblin was crazy, but now we really see that he's crazy. Yeah. This is the first time we really dive into his insanity. I think it would have been way better if it was, like, an emotional outburst where he goes, like, and, like, rips it off. But it's still cool. It's still cool. Still unmasked Green Goblin.
Yep. But, pretty cool, pretty sick. The next issue, though, is something to behold. Let's see. Can I get this on my... So another thing is I got a Kindle. I got an Amazon Fire tablet. So
he was jealous of my tablet reading on Marvel
Unlimited. I really was, honestly. So
not a sponsored segment, but we are reading all of our comics on Marvel Unlimited. So hey, Marvel, if you want to sponsor us, just let me know.
That's very true. From the Omnibus to the Amazon Fire.
Yeah. You ran out. The Omnibus ended. Yeah.
It ascended.
Now you can read literally all of them.
Yes. Issue 40, the end of the Green Goblin. Spidey saves the day. A fantastic cover with Spider-Man now fully dressed.
One of my favorite Spider-Man covers of all time.
With a aggressive stance over Green Goblin, with the glider on fire in the background and all the rubble.
So
absolutely classic.
So fun fact about another personal anecdote. My issue 40 that I have. This was the second Silver Age Spider-Man book that I ever got.
It's a good one to get.
Because I got 19, which was my first one, and then this was actually a gift to me from my brother, who also collects comic books. He got it for me for Christmas, I think. And I remember just, like, this was before I knew, like, now I know basically every issue of Spider-Man, just as a collector. But back then I was a kid, I didn't really know them. So this was my first time seeing it when I got it. And this cover is so freaking good. You got Green Goblin on the ground, fire in the background, Spider-Man standing over him. It's just awesome.
I love the way with the fire and the smoke goes up into the cobwebs of the title.
Yeah, it just
looks sick.
John Romita came out with bangers. The cover for 39 and 40, unmatched.
They literally have a toy that I have, or like a toy statue, for issue 39.
Oh yeah,
where it's the Green Goblin, and then he has like a hole for a hand where he is with rope, and it's literally the cover.
They've done cover swipes of it. I remember for 800, I have a variant that's Red Goblin dragging Peter, and it's like an exact cover match. So iconic. John Romita really came out swinging with these two. I mean, it's not like John Romita started on some like random issue and then built up. Like no, they came out banging.
Boom.
But
and the Green Goblin picks up right where they left off, issue 39. And immediately Peter's like, well, I need to get this lunatic to keep talking so I can struggle out of this coil that he's got me in. So he obviously puts 2 and 2 together.
Well, let's not forget the very beginning of the story. Peter picks up on his insanity because he mentions Harry and then Norman crumbles.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, like Norman
Harry
crumbles.
Because obviously he recognized Norman.
Yeah, he goes, I should have known you. You have a son, Harry. And then immediately Norman's like, Harry, my son? And he just starts, like, freaking out. So Peter
it's a
picks
Jekyll
up
and
on him.
Hyde type of deal going on almost immediately in the first page. And so, yeah, like, he gets a whiff of that. And it's like, I want to get this guy going so I can get out of these coils, which he's in for a very long time.
Yeah, most of the issue.
Most of the issue, yes.
It's mostly just them talking, which I actually enjoy because it's a lot of storytelling, a lot of depth to it.
We get the backstory to Norman Osborn and a good bit of Harry, and obviously how he became the Green Goblin. So they didn't have a good relationship.
No.
So Harry said that in the last issue. Whatever you want to think about that, you can think about that. That they had a good relationship before, 2 years ago.
A child of that circumstance, they're gonna,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, anybody that knows any Norman Osborn media, if you're talking about cartoon, movies, the relationship that pretty much always happens between Norman and Harry is what is explained here, Norman doesn't really have any time for Harry, shoos him off a lot, is a pretty terrible father to him, and tries to make up with it at times with gifts and money and everything, and that's not.
He's like delusional about it though, because he thinks that he was a good father when he's like, no one can say I wasn't, but he was. And I gotta say, I gotta give Stan Lee props for this issue specifically because he's mentioned it in other comic books, and I just know from the time, like, a lot of what comic books were in the 60s was like, just keep it to action, not a lot of words, like, we want kids to be able to just flip through it and bam, pow, this, that, the other. This book has so much dialogue and thought, and it makes it a better story, but I gotta give him respect for doing that, because I feel like at the time that was like a bad idea, or at least like a risky move to add all that text, because like kids will be bored with it. But I think he had faith that people were invested enough in this story that it would come through, that like we wouldn't have got all this background. Like, it would have been like, he's Harry's dad and he's evil, bam, pow, they fight. Like, that would have been the like earlier issue. But I think at this point in Spider-Man, we're 40 issues in, he's starting to get the confidence to, like, I can tell stories here.
Right. 100%.
But
we also see more of the backstory with, what's his name again? Professor Storm. They were business partners, and Norman pretty much cut him out.
Yep.
And call the police. Ended up calling the police on him, getting him arrested. So it was Storm's original formula that Norman messed around with that ended up exploding and causing him to become the Green Goblin.
Which, it's been a while since I've read or knew about Green Goblin's origin. I didn't realize that it was an accident.
Yeah.
I was caught up in the movies where it was an intentional, like, I'm going to test this thing and whatever. I didn't realize that it was an explosion, which feels a little bit less... I don't know, I don't like that as much.
It's definitely better when it's like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and take the serum or whatever, and I'm going to inject myself with something that I think is going to make me stronger, faster, more intelligent, and then it, goes awry, instead of like, I'm trying to figure out my ex-partner's formula.
Because that when it was intentional, that fit his character,
right?
Like arrogant and egotistical. Whereas this just feels like another Dr. Octopus or another Electro. It's like, boom, explosion. I'm stronger now, but I'm also crazy, but I don't realize it. Like, that just kind of like, it's a little too similar to Dr. Octopus's origin, where like it was an explosion, he went crazy. But, I mean, it's okay, it's fine. I was just a little disappointed reading that. But the panel, that art in that panel is incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's amazing. I love, obviously, that green in there.
Yeah, you got the green and, like, the silhouette and its faded explosion. It's very good.
I love how when he's like, okay, he plans for months. Like, he's got this new intelligence, this new strength and everything like that. And he's like, well, I gotta do something with this. I'm gonna become one of, like, the costume villains out there, right? That's his big idea. And he's like, I'm going to create a costume, and I'm going to make it my favorite color, green. That's the reason.
That is funny, yeah.
It's his favorite color.
The thing, again, I was disappointed with the origin of how he got his powers. I was also a little disappointed with the origin of why he became the Green Goblin. I think this is why, with the movies, they changed it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like every other villain. We've talked about this every time we've had a new villain. It's like, I have powers now. I guess I'm going to be a supervillain. It's like... there's no depth there. It's just very two-dimensional. Obviously, Norman Osborn ends up becoming a very in-depth character, but just at this point in time, it's just another one of the other villains that like got in an explosion and then decided to be a villain.
That makes sense from that point. Yes, there is a lot of that same stuff, and I've complained alongside you with that type of thing, but discussed it, at least not really complained, but there is more with Norman, obviously, with being Harry's father and knowing him for a couple issues before he was at least revealed to be a villain, so there is a little bit more to him.
Yeah, like there's more, but
the general, boom, explosion, I'm crazy now, let's go be a villain is been there, done that.
Tried and true formula. That obviously they kind of end up like a lot of these villains that had that origin, they end up adding more depth to their origin later down the line. So it's all right, but yeah, then they add the stakes. So while Peter is talking to Green Goblin, we're getting his origin story. Then they cut away to Aunt May being worried about Peter not coming home, and he's not calling. Now we've established that Peter was calling when he was out late. He was stopping mid-fight to call Aunt May, and now she's worried and she's gonna die.
She's gonna die. Peter did not call. He's home late. She will die.
Yeah, and JJ is the most helpful. We mentioned it earlier, but here it is. He goes, no, Parker isn't here. What am I supposed to be, a lost and found department? He's probably out stealing hubcaps somewhere. Empty-headed teenagers. They're all alike. Hangs up the phone and he goes, Miss Brown, bring in the whatever. I want to make an editorial on how younger generations sucks.
Yeah.
I want to see J.K. Simmons read that exact line of dialogue.
That'd be pretty fantastic. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because I haven't read these issues in a lot, but I feel like J. Jonah Jameson in these 2 issues is just like at the top of his game in terms of comebacks and one-liners and stuff like that. So I hope he continues this way because I literally love these 2 issues and the way he speaks to people.
I love JJ as a character. Like he's just an exaggerated stereotype of like the newsman. Like it's so good. It's I'm trying to think of the word. I don't think hyperbole is the word, but it's just like over exaggerated, you know. Mm-hmm. And also, I love his character arc, so I'm excited to keep reading him throughout the series. But
I've watched some interviews with Stan Lee saying that he was his favorite character to write.
I believe that 100%.
Be like, he said that he modeled it after himself in some ways, which is like I can't see that obviously from what I know of Stan Lee, but I'm sure
it's a little bit. Yeah, I mean he's kind of mocking the. I was thinking mocking himself or mocking his boss, like mocking the editor-in-chief of Marvel. I think it was Martin Goodman at the time, who was supposed to be this very like, what's the word? Colorful personality, I guess is one way to put it. And that's fitting. And then obviously, so we have that scene with JJ. We cut to a scene of Betty coming back to New York. Whatever, I'm over it. I don't care about Betty anymore. That's my take. I don't care.
I stopped caring a while ago.
Yeah. And they're not teasing it like they're gonna get back together, but they're still being like, oh, here's Betty and she's heartbroken. It's like
not only that, but this is not the storyline to just inject that into. It's like I do not care in general, but I don't care, especially now. Right now, we're in the middle of a very intense arc. Can you please not with the Betty stuff?
Yeah, they did literally say like you probably guessed by now, but these pages were just to catch up new readers. Which like, you know, I get whatever. I get it. It's fine.
I do like after that though when Spider-Man saying like beat you 3 times, 4 times, whatever it was. I'm just gonna beat you again. And Goblin's like, what do you mean you never beat me at all? Every single time it was someone else's fault. And that's why. And watch, I'll show you. He puts on like a projector memory like helmet and just shows issue 14 through what was it, 26.
14, 17, 23, 24.
Right. And why it wasn't his fault that this happened and this happened and this happened. And he never got beaten, just unlucky.
Here's the thing. He's not wrong.
Kind of true. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Spider-Man never beat Green Goblin until this issue because it was Human Torch showed up, Green Goblin left, you know, the Crime Master interfered, you know, like things always came up where Green Goblin had him beat and then circumstances allowed him to escape. This is the first issue where he really beats him.
Yeah. I just love that he's like, you know, you're an awful father, Harry. No, I'm not. Look at all these great things I've done. I've beaten you before. No, you haven't. Look at this projector I have of my memories. He's like,
he's got something to prove.
He's got a lot to prove.
And I love the like rivalry of it because like.
Yeah.
Peter's like almost broken free, and the Green Goblin's like, you know what? I'm gonna set you free. And Peter's like, you only let me go because you know I was gonna break free. Like it's like siblings bickering. It's like I was about to beat you.
Even though they are like what 20, 30 years apart in age, they seem like on very level playing fields in both these issues.
Green Goblin's insanity has like de-aged his personality. He's very immature. He has something to prove. He wants to beat Spider-Man. He wants to beat it the right way. I mean, we've seen that before. When Human Torch showed up, he's like, no, I want to beat him, just me. Like, I want it to be, whatever. But the showdown, I love the fact that Green Goblin stops to wait for Peter to change into the Spider-Man suit because he's like, I want to fight Spider-Man. But I'm just imagining, like, in the comic panels, it's like one panel, right? And then he's suited up. Imagine in, like, real time. It's like, oh, you're going to get it. Undoing the buttons, like slowly pulling, like undoing his belt, like just this awkward pause.
Like, yes, you undress and redress.
Goblin's throwing ones out here. Hey, they're his favorite color, green.
Yeah, and then when he's all suited up, what? Like, all right, ready, set, okay, go, let's fight.
Yeah, it's like all right, ready and go. So it works in a comic, wouldn't work in any other medium, but I got a kick out of it. I thought it was funny. And then we get just a great classic Spider-Man Green Goblin fight.
100%.
Throwing gadgets and then webbing it and then, breaking that web. And it's just this back and forth. It just reminds me of, like, Harry Potter versus Voldemort, like, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. Like, those duels where it's just, like, so equal and even. And it's just, like, back and forth, A proper rival.
I think it is very, very even. So, same playing field in terms of mentally, but also just their abilities with gadgets, both of them. The different types of webs that Spider-Man has, different type of bombs and slices.
He truly is a match for him.
Yeah, 100%.
Like
it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's not like these other fights where Spider-Man's like, I'm just stronger than you, I'm just gonna punch you. It's like, no, you have to outsmart him, and this guy's smart.
And it seems like kind of at one point, Goblin's cockiness kind of got the best of him, where he was doing the whole smoke thing with the glider, and Peter was like, oh no, the smoke, just trying to get him close, and then bam, knocks him off.
But then Green Goblin does the exact same thing to him, because Peter fakes like, oh, I'm out of it, and then punches Green Goblin, and then Green Goblin's on the ground like, oh, I'm out of it, and then he grabs Peter. Like, they're both psyching each other out, they're using the same tactics, like, it's such a back and forth. But, like you said, ultimately the end comes around when Green Goblin pulls out the cannon and starts, like, lighting things on fire. Right before that, though, he has the flying bat thingies.
Right.
Sam Raimi took that straight out of this comic book.
Nah, that's pretty amazing.
Like, think about it, that one panel of Spider-Man going like this with, like, a bunch of bats flying at him turned into that, like, epic slow-mo sequence in the Sam Raimi movie.
Both in fire. Well, this place is not fully on fire yet, but...
I have to believe that fight in that movie had to be inspired by this comic book. Like, you're in a burning building, they're throwing the bats, like, that has to be, like, that had to be a nod to this issue.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
But he uses the Goblin cannon, trademark pending.
Incredible.
And Peter says, "Zat so? I'm all choked up." Zat?
Is that?
But, yeah, Spider-Man gives him a walk in the head, according to the text. A walk, and knocks Green Goblin back into a wall or something. He hits his head hard. The building's starting to catch on fire. He goes over, and then he has amnesia.
I will say this panel right here. I don't know if my camera's going to capture it very well. This one right here when he gets knocked back.
Yeah.
So, that right there, the immediate thing I'm thinking of looking at it is it looks almost identical to 122 when he gets pushed back by the glider. It's like almost identical. Like, obviously I don't think that's what they were doing, but like it just looks
similar
exactly
pose.
Like yeah, it's like crazy.
Yeah. Definitely has parallels between the two. And I was thinking, like, obviously I knew this issue was going to end with Norman getting amnesia, but it's kind of smart. Like, this is the first villain that figured out Peter's identity. So they even talked about it in the story that immediately created a dilemma of, like, do I need to kill this guy? Like, he knows who I am, but I can't kill him. Like, I don't kill people. What do I do? So if I'm reading this back in the 60s, I'm thinking, like, what the heck is he going to do? Because if he lets this guy live, he's going to tell everyone and he's screwed. Like, what is he going to do? And the amnesia is a really good solution to that. It was a twist, you know. I obviously saw it coming, but like from a narrative standpoint, it was out of nowhere, and it was a convenient solution to the problem, but it also creates problems down the line. So.
And if I was a reader at this time, I'd be very interested because I'd be like, well, no way they're gonna keep the amnesia, right? Well, maybe back then they wouldn't say that because there wasn't as many movies and
they
TV
might have
shows,
thought it was wrapped up and done. They were like,
really
"That's the
thought,
Green
oh,
Goblin."
well, it's done.
They had no idea that they have 60 years of history in front of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they probably thought like, "Oh, cool, Green Goblin's done. That's it." But then, I'm sure we'll see it as we keep reading. Like, there's always that dynamic when he's interacting with Norman of like, does he remember? Like, did he remember? Like, does he know who he is? And that creates a really interesting dynamic. But that's pretty much.
Peter does undress and then redress a fully grown man as well.
I thought that as well.
Thing that is interesting, but then he just throws the costume and throws everything into the fire.
He really does him a solid.
Yeah.
He could have been like, "Yo, this is the Green Goblin, arrest him." But he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna give him a second chance at life."
So this is one of the original costumes and original gliders that will never be seen again, burned completely. Next time you see him and all the other great stories, this costume burned to a crisp.
Yeah, it's the end of the first era of Green Goblin.
Yep.
But that's pretty much the end of this issue. I mean, Peter just goes home, makes sure Aunt May is good, and we see Norman and Harry kind of chumming it up in the hospital. But that is the culmination of the story so far in Amazing Spider-Man. That is the beginning of the true rivalry. Like, this really establishes Green Goblin as his nemesis. He's the first one to figure out his identity. You know, they almost fight to the death, and he gets amnesia later to return.
Yes, very, very exciting. He doesn't return till the
90s,
I believe, with the drug issues, which is going to be very fun. I do not remember a lot of that, only mostly the drug-related stuff. Don't remember a lot of the Green Goblin action, believe it or not.
I said it a while ago, we're pretty much in the territory where I have read almost none of these comics, so I'm fully going in blind from here on out. Before I talk about next episode...
I will also say, from now until 122, we get, I think, 5 Green Goblin issues.
That sounds about right, yeah.
If
even. It might be less than that.
Well, I think it's 3 drug issues and then 121, 122.
Oh, including... Okay, yeah, that's right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
So, from now until 122, 5 issues. That is not a lot for the amount of,
For how famous Green Goblin is.
Yeah.
He really only has like 15 appearances until they bring him back in like the 2000s.
Which is insane.
That's crazy.
That's why these issues are so important, because there's not a lot of Green Goblin to come from, and these 2 issues are like up there with 121, 122 in terms of the full gist.
Yeah, they're so important, so impactful, so memorable. Obviously, collectors like fall over each other trying to get these issues, but also just as readers, like they're so important to the Spider-Man story, which is what we're here for, Yep. But overall, we're not even gonna rate these issues because they're 10 out of 10.
100%.
Despite whatever issues they may have, some weird asides with Betty Brant, some plot holes in there that we pointed out, some goofs and gaffes. You can't rate them anything less than 10 because they're iconic. They are what they are, and leave it at that. But, as I was starting to get to earlier, next episode, we are diving into some books that I have been very eager to read since we started this series. We're reading issue 41, first appearance of the Rhino. We're reading issue 42, first appearance of Mary Jane. 43, the return of the Rhino. And I believe we're also doing, 44 and 45, which is the return of the Lizard.
I thought we were doing the first 3. We're going all the way to 45. Right?
We're doing 5. So we're doing 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. First appearance of Rhino, first appearance of Mary Jane, return of the Lizard. So many epic things are happening, so you definitely don't want to miss the next episode of Webheads Comic Club. Hopefully coming out next week. Hopefully. Also, before we wrap up this episode, I do got to give a shout out. I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but the day we're recording this is Peter Parker's birthday.
Happy birthday, Peter.
Yep.
Is that in the movie or just in general?
It was in the movie, but the movie was based on, it's been a thing that people know August 10th is Peter's birthday. So, happy birthday, Peter Parker. We are 9 episodes into this podcast. We got a long way to go. We got noises sounding off over there.
It's like in the fire, man. Sorry.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this baby up?
Even though we won't see him for
a long time,
very long time, I will still continue to talk about him almost every episode.
It's going to be a long time before we see this guy again. That's why we gave him a whole episode.
But there is, that I know, confirmed, there is many cameos of at least Peter thinking about him.
Yeah.
Between the time.
We're gonna see plenty of Norman Osborn.
That too.
Just not Green Goblin.
Right.
But that's going to do it for us here at the Webheads Comic Club. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like over on YouTube. Rate it on whatever podcast platform you're on, whatever you think is fair. I think 5 stars is fair, but that's up to you.
Of course.
Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. We say this every episode. If he can tell his physical therapist about it, you can tell your friends about it.
Tell your dentist. Tell your.
If my mom can watch this podcast, then your mom can watch this podcast.
Yes, and your friend, tell your coworkers about it.
Tell them all, because at the end of the day, we just want more people to celebrate this awesome comic series with. So bring them over this way.
Tell your barber.
Yeah, getting a haircut, and they're like, "Hey, what are you up to?" And be like, "Oh, I was listening to this podcast the other day."
If you get stopped in the street and they say, "Hey, what are you listening to?"
Oh, Webheads Comic Club. We should make that TikTok, dude.
Episode 9 of Webheads Comic Club. And then they cut into the sound.
Okay. If you're watching this podcast because you saw that exact TikTok on TikTok advertising this podcast, because I now want to make that, leave a like. I mean, come on, you gotta leave a comment. You know,
there you go.
I really want just like, hey, what are you listening to? Oh, Webheads Comic Club.
And it cuts into us.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And it's literally it's me who's listening to it, so everyone's like, what? Yeah, we'll do that. Or maybe I'll get Reagan to do it. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us.
Get Gut to do it. Otherwise, don't even think about doing it.
Yeah. Gut is our friend who was gonna be a guest on this episode, but he missed out.
He can make up for that.
Missed out on his opportunity, so maybe he'll make up for it with that. Maybe we'll have him on a future episode. I don't know. I would like to have more guests on, so we'll see if we have some people. But I'm gonna wrap it up before we keep rambling. So thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys in the next episode, hopefully next week. Socials below on the YouTube video. Go and check out JP over at his socials over there. Go and check out my other socials over here. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Peace.